Parshas Vayakal is the building of the Mishkan, how they actually built the Mishkan. The last pasuk in Parshas Pekudei, it's how the Torah is closing Sefer Shemois. The pasuk says, Ki anan Hashem el ha-Mishkan yoimom, the anon of Hashem was on the Mishkan by day, ve'esh tia laila boy, and there was a fire on the Mishkan at night. Leinei kol Yisrael, everybody was able to see it, it was clear. B'chol ma'aseim, in all their travels. So Rashi's bothered by it, says B'chol ma'aseim, in all their travels, the Eish, the Amud by day and the Eish at night was when the Mishkan was resting, not when the Mishkan was traveling. By day, when it was traveling, it was on top of the Yid, not on top of the Mishkan. Rashi says a Lashon, Mokum chaniyasan afu kori masa. Even when they're resting, that's really called a traveling. Even when the Mishkan was resting, Klal Yisrael was stationary, afu nikra masa. That's what a masa means. A masa does not dafka mean that they were actually traveling. By the Mishkan, when the Mishkan was resting, it's also called a traveling. What does that mean? Rashi learns that the Truma Tetzava, Vayakal Pekudei, the building of the Mishkan took place after the Egel, and it was a kapara for the Egel. Rashi says, Ein mugdim u'mucha b'Torah, there's no specific order in the Torah, and really the Egel should have been before, Kisisa should have been before Truma Tetzava, and the Mishkan is a kapara for the Egel. That's what Rashi learns. Other Rishonim, the Ramban, they learned that no, it is Ala Seder, and the tachlis of the Mishkan was a resting place for the Luchos. Yisrael Mishpatim was the giving over of the Torah. Now there's a Torah, there's Luchos. You need a place to rest the Luchos. So they had to build an Aron to put the Luchos in, and the whole, in other words, the focal point of the Mishkan was really the Aron. It was just a place to keep the Torah. And of course, the focal point of the Mishkan, even if you don't like Rashi, has to be the Arena Bris, the Arena Eidos, because it was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and the most holiest part of the Kodesh HaKadoshim is the Aron. So if you're building up to a certain Kedusha, obviously that's the Tachlis. So the Tachlis of the Mishkan was for the Torah, for the Luchos that was in the Aron in the Mishkan. Torah does not take up specific space. That was the lesson of the Mishkan. The Mishkan, which is the Tachlis of the Arena Bris, Torah does not take up specific place. Torah is not connected to space. Torah is way beyond and above space. As we know, the Yidden throughout the Golus, they were called the wandering Jew. The wandering Jew. The Jews never had a specific place that they were able to stay. So how did they survive? No other nation survives. How did they survive? They survived through the Torah which is in them. The Torah doesn't need space. This Torah itself gives space to the Yid. The Torah that's in everybody's heart, that gives the person a way of finding space in this world. But the Torah itself does not need a specific space. Shlita says that in the Aron there was a din. The Shulchan had badim. What were the badim? What was the purpose of the badim? Rods. To carry the Shulchan, when they had to move the Mishkan, to carry the Shulchan there was rods. So it says when they had to carry the Shulchan they put in the rods. Mashenkem at the Aron also had these rods. And it says, Lo yasuru mimenu. And the Rambam even counts it as a lav. It's also to take out the rods from the Aron. The rods have to always be in the Aron. Shlita says, why did the rods have to always be in the Aron? This is because to show this lesson. That since the Torah was in the Aron and the Aron is representing the Torah never has a specific resting place. It comes along with its rods. It comes along with the things that carry it because it's not stationary. The Aron is not a stationary thing. It comes along with the things that carry it. And as we know, there's a din that the Bade Aron, the rods of the Aron, had to stick out into the Heichal, had to poke out into the Parechas. That even when you walk into the Heichal, you should know right away that Aron, which is the climax of the Kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash, that Aron has Badim on it, which are there to show that the Aron is not the Siachas to a specific place. The Aron is way above and beyond space because it represents the Torah. On Har Sinai had a Kedusha b'Shas Matan Torah. As soon as Matan Torah is over, the pasuk says, "B'msheich hayovel," Hashem blows the last shofar. There's no kedusha on Har Sinai. Har Abayis, which there was avodah besides the Aron, there was avodah on Har Abayis. Har Abayis has kedusha till today. The kedusha of the avodah is misyachas the place, and therefore the kedusha is never batal. But the makam of Matan Torah, Har Sinai, the Torah is not misyachas to Har Sinai. So as soon as Matan Torah is over, hey mayalu ba'ar, you could go up and there is no kedusha. Torah is not misyachas to space. The Aron, the Gemara tells us, makam Aron einam and amida. The Gemara says a fascinating thing. The Gemara says that if you walk into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and you measure, the Kodesh HaKadoshim was 10 amas long. The Gemara says if you measure from the beginning of the Kodesh HaKadoshim till the Aron will be 5 amas, and if you go on the other side of the Aron till the end, it was also 5 amas. How could it be if the Aron itself took up space? So the Gemara says, Makam Aron Einam and Amida. It's a concept we can't even understand. In this world, everything we have takes up space. It's one of the rules of physics of this world. Makam Aron Einam and Amida didn't take up space. What was the purpose of that? Kriyas Yamsuf. We know what the purpose of Kriyas Yamsuf is. You have to get to the other side of the Yamsuf. So there was a Kriyas Yamsuf, right? What was the purpose of the nace of Makam Aron Einam and Amida? The answer is there was no purpose. The Aron does not take up space. The Aron, which represents Torah, does not take up space. It's not a nace for a specific purpose. It doesn't take up space. Torah does not take up space. It's as simple as that. Not so simple, but...
Ik had de horen van een beetje Feinstein. Steht de luchis alleen the take up space.
In the Aron.
In the Aron.
Okay. Maybe there'll be a trout for that. The Rambam in Sefer Mitzvah says, HaMenorah v'Ashulchan v'Mizbeach v'Zulasam kulam heim echelki HaMikdash. The Menorah, the Shulchan, and the Mizbeach are all parts of the Beis HaMikdash. And there's the Mefarshim over there in Sefer Mitzvah say the Rambam holds that it's ma'akiv the Beis HaMikdash. You cannot have a Beis HaMikdash unless you have the kelim of these kelim, Aron, Shulchan, and Mizbeach. Mashenkin the Aron is not ma'akiv the Beis HaMikdash. He says Zulasam. He says Menorah, Shulchan, and Mizbeach. In other words, you're not makayim the mitzvah of building a Beis HaMikdash until you have those things in it. The Aron is not ma'akiv, and of course it's not ma'akiv. It's like the Mishnah in Yuma tells us, by Sheni, there was no Aron. By Sheni there was no Aron. The Voida that the Kohen Gadol did on Yom Kippur and by Sheni, he did on the Evan Shasiyah, on a rock that was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which in the first bias, the Aron was on top of that rock. In the second bias, there was no Aron. So obviously the Aron is not ma'akiv the Beis HaMikdash, and you could do the Voida without the Aron. The Aron is not ma'akiv. Why is the Aron not ma'akiv? Because the Aron does not need space. How could the Aron be ma'akiv the Beis HaMikdash if the Aron itself doesn't need space? If the Aron is Einam and Amida, it was never, even when it was there, it wasn't part of the Beis HaMikdash. If the Aron is Einam and Amida, when it's there, it's also not part of the Beis HaMikdash. But might not need space. Might not need space does not mean. But might not need space doesn't mean it doesn't exist in this world. Doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in this world. It exists in this world without taking up space. There's a Rambam, the Gemara in Yuma. The Gemara in Yuma says, it brings down a machlokes. Where's the Aron today? Where's the Aron Bisman Hazeh? One Shita holds the Aron went to Bavel, but after the Churban Bayis Rishon, the Aron went to Bavel, and that's where it is. It's stuck in Bavel somewhere. There's another Shita that no, it's under the Makam HaMikdash. The Aron today is under the Makam HaMikdash. And the Rambam passes like that Shita, and the Rambam says like this. It's Machot,
what's the Negeya? What's the Negeya make?
You'll see what it's Negeya. You'll see what it's Negeya.
What was the
The Rambam says, "Be'ez Shebana Shlomo Abayis." At the time of Binyan Abayis, Shlomo Melech Yada Shasofei Licharv. He knew that eventually the Beis HaMikdash is going to become Charav. Bana Makam Legnoz Aron Lamata. He built a place under the Beis HaMikdash to be going as the Aron. B'shas Binyan Abayis, he's building a place where to hide the Aron. Where was that place? It's in Matmonios, Amukos, Vakalkalos. It's deep in the bowels under the thing. Amukos, Vakalkalos, deep tunnels, windy tunnels. He's making a mocha for the Aron in windy tunnels under the Beis HaMikdash. Yeshua HaMelech, later by the Churban, Yeshua HaMelech, Tziva v'gonze b'makom Shabana Shlomo. Told the people that they have to be going as the Aron in that place that Shlomo HaMelech built. What's Geniza? Geniza means that there's a place, it has a place, but that place is not something that takes up our space. It has a place in this world, but that's a place that's not misyachas to a specific place. It could be gonus, it could be hidden away. It's here, but it's gonus. It's hidden away. Where's it hidden? In matmonios, amukos, va'kalkalos. That's where it's hidden. So that means the Aron is here in this world. The Yavitz on that Rambam says, what's the Rambam trying to tell us? The Rambam's halacha sefer. What's the Rambam trying to tell us? The Yavitz says the Rambam's trying to tell you because he holds the Aron is ma'akiv in the Beis HaMikdash. Of course the Aron is ma'akiv in the Beis HaMikdash. But it doesn't need space. It's not in a specific space. He says if you wouldn't have the Aron gonas over there under the ground, you would not be able to do the Ketores in the Bayesheni. The Torah has a place, but it's not misyachas to that specific place. Of course the Torah has a place. Every place is the Torah's place. That's what geniza means. In a makam, matmonius, amukos, ועקלקלות is not the makam of Aron. By the way, that could be a test to a Moshe Shayla. It has a place. In the Aron it has a place, but the Aron itself doesn't take up space. It has a place, but it doesn't take up space. How do you have a place without taking up space? If the Aron doesn't take up space, but you're in the Aron, so you have a place without taking up space. Every person in their life. Now, what comes out? If something doesn't have space, that means even if there's a churban, it's still around. What's a churban? What's destruction? Destruction is a place. A place can be destroyed. Something that doesn't have a place can't be destroyed. B'shas binyan havayis Shlomo Melech was building a makam for the Aron, a makam because the Aron can never get destroyed. So even later when the base of Mikdash is destroyed, the Aron still needs a makam. It's a place that's not a place that could never get destroyed. Everyone in their life has destruction. It could be emotional, physical. Or if the Torah, which the Aron represents, in a makam matmonius, amukos, ועקלקלות is deep in a person's heart. If be'ez שבנה, in the time of your binyan, you put an Aron with makam matmonius, amukos, ועקלקלות, that never gets destroyed.